This week, 10 days after Luigi Mangione was caught in Altoona, Pennsylvania, the alleged CEO killer returns to New York City. Plus,
and I have never done anything illegal in my capacity in government.
The former chief advisor to Mayor Eric Adams now faces charges, and alleged Gilgo Beach killer Rex Heuermann is accused of a 7th murder. Right now, Fox 5's Crime in the City. We begin with the latest chapter in the story of Luigi Mangione, as the accused CEO murderer is flown back to New York City to face the charges against him.
And we begin with Luigi Mangione back in the Big Apple facing those federal charges. Good evening. Thanks for being with us. I'm Steve Lacey.
And I'm Natasha Verma. Mangione just saying one word in Manhattan federal court today, yes, when the judge asked if he understands what he's being accused of. Mangione's day beginning with him agreeing to be extradited back to New York to face murder charges. And before he even landed here from Pennsylvania, he was slapped with federal charges, including murder, stalking, and weapons charges. He could face the death penalty, and after appearing before a federal judge this afternoon in a hearing that lasted just 15 minutes, Luigi Mangione, the man accused of murdering United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, is now an inmate at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn.
All right, that's where Fox 5's Sharon Crowley joins us live tonight with the latest. Sharon.
Yeah, Mangione is being held without bail. This is a federal detention center in Brooklyn. Of course, he is accused of gunning down United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Let's take you through his day. It actually started this morning in Pennsylvania. Now, Mangione made his first court appearance there, where he waived his extradition, and he was brought here to New York, first on a plane to Long Island, and then he was helicoptered actually to the chopper pad in Lower Manhattan before he was brought to the federal courthouse. He's now facing new federal charges that we learned about today of stalking and murder, which could bring the death penalty if he's convicted. His court appearance in Manhattan lasting just 15 minutes, and the 26-year-old accused killer sat quietly. He was allowed to wear civilian clothes. He was not in that orange jumpsuit that we've seen him in, and he appeared pretty calm in the courtroom. Mangione is also facing some state charges, including murder as an act of terrorism. Former federal prosecutor Andrew Cherkowski says that the feds will now likely take the lead and prosecute their case first.
They're charging him with a type of murder that includes stalking and subjects him potentially to the death penalty. He was also charged with first and second degree murder in the state of New York. Those carry maximum penalties in the murder in the first degree of life without the possibility of parole, but there is no death penalty in the state of New York. Moreover, with the feds now actually involved in this, their case would go ahead of the New York case, and New York has laws and policies that essentially prevent them from prosecuting someone for the same thing that someone's getting prosecuted by the feds for.
Well, Mangione, as you know, is accused of shooting and killing Thompson early on the morning of December 4th in Midtown Manhattan. Police say he then left the city. He was a fugitive, and he was caught about 5 days later eating at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Now, investigators have indicated there is evidence to show that Mangione despised the healthcare insurance industry and its executives. Now, his defense lawyers didn't really have much to say outside the courtroom today, only that they were blindsided by these federal charges. They had expected the state charges and thought that's where they were going today first, but in fact they ended up with a first appearance in federal court. Now, as we said, Mangione is being held here at MDC, and there's another famous inmate here as well, Sean P. Diddy Combs. And there's one more thing the two inmates have in common. They both have defense lawyers who are married to one another.
Ingrid Lewis Martin, a former advisor to Mayor Eric Adams, has been charged with accepting payments in exchange for favors benefiting her son's business ventures, according to the DA's office.
Ingrid Lewis Martin was arraigned on bribery and conspiracy charges this afternoon. Prosecutors allege she used her position as one of Mayor Adams' closest advisors to ask the Department of Buildings Commissioner to expedite construction permits and applications for two real estate investors who were also indicted. In return, the Manhattan DA says Lewis Martin and her son were allegedly paid $100,000. Her son is also facing charges.
Today's announcement addresses corruption at the highest levels of city government. The indictment unsealed today can be summarized in 3 words: quid pro quo.
Lewis Martin's lawyer calls the case political and a witch hunt.
Prosecutors have officially charged accused Gilgo Beach serial killer Rex Heuermann with a 7th murder, dating back more than 2 decades. The latest charge involves Valerie Mack, who was previously known as Jane Doe number 6.
Turning now to our other big story tonight. Rex Heuermann back in court. The suspected Gilgo Beach killer charged with a 7th murder.
All right, and as Heuermann proclaimed his innocence, the prosecution revealed new evidence against him. Fox 5's Jody Goldberg takes us inside the courtroom.
So-called souvenirs, multiple magazine and newspaper clippings found inside suspected Gilgo Beach serial killer Rex Heuermann's Massapequa Park home, as well as his Manhattan office, were made public for the first time.
There was a New York Times Magazine article about the Gilgo investigation, which was found in the defendant's safe.
Also a first, Heuermann unexpectedly blurted out inside the courtroom, "Your Honor, I'm not guilty of any of these charges." The father and architect who was first arrested last summer is now officially charged with the murder of Valerie Mack.
We have mitochondrial DNA from a hair that was found on the body of Valerie Mack.
Hair found on Mack's severed wrist matched Heuermann's wife and daughter's DNA profile. It's also believed he mutilated Mack, who for 2 decades was known as Jane Doe number 6. Heuermann tried to delete violent bondage and torture porn from a computer that prosecutors say was consistent to the injuries Mack was found with. His IP address also showed searches for her murder. A planning document listed Mill Road, where she was found, as a dump site, and records show a plumber was called in to check his mainline drain after she was killed.
All of those things evince a certain mental state and intent.
Heuermann's now charged with the murders of 7 women, all sex workers. Hair on 6 of them have been linked to him or his family. His attorney, Michael Brown, continues to cast doubt on the evidence.
There's no evidence that any of the victims' DNA is on anything in that home, but rather they're relying on cutouts of articles from the New York Post and People magazine.
While Mack's family didn't speak, the district attorney says it's a step in the right direction.
They're very grateful for the small bit of closure that the task force has been able to provide.
Attorney Gloria Allred represents several of the victims' families. They all support the Macks, handing out roses to show their sympathy.
None of the victims deserve to die.
It's important to note this type of DNA has never been used as evidence in a New York court before. The judge has to decide whether it'll be admissible. Heuermann is due back in court on January 15th. No trial date has been set yet.
A bullet strikes a bus traveling in Brooklyn, hitting one of the passengers on board.
A man riding an MTA bus in Brooklyn was shot in the neck when a bullet pierced the front windshield of the bus. Police say this happened around 1:30 this morning in Brownsville. The bus was traveling westbound on Rockaway Avenue when the shot was fired. The victim was taken to the hospital in stable condition. Police say it does not appear he was targeted, but so far no arrests have been made.
And finally, in an effort to keep commuters safe during the holiday season, New York Governor Kathy Hochul announced on Wednesday that she's deploying an additional 250 National Guard members to patrol the New York City subway system.
Governor Hochul announcing more National Guard soldiers will be assigned to the subway system for the holiday season. This will bring the total to about 1,000 members of the Guard on patrol. Hochul says his boost in security is not a result of any upward crime trend, but instead to give riders more of a sense of comfort.
That's this week's Crime in the City. Subscribe for more at youtube.com/Fox5NY.